Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie Roadhouse. Before we get started, hit the like button and subscribe. It may only be a click for you, but it has a significant impact on the channel. The action begins at Tyler Durden's favorite event, an underground fight tournament. Frankie is looking for a local champion who has defeated another competitor. The organizers ponder, who else is ready to challenge the champion? A guy in a hoodie walks into the cage and begins to strip. Upon seeing him, the champion refuses to fight and leaves the ring. He takes the money, the guy runs away, but the enraged customer tracks him down in the parking lot and stabs him to get the $500 he lost. The fighter's calm reaction taunts the bully and he becomes afraid. Frankie approaches and helps the stranger tape up the wound, then offers him a job as a wishbone at a pub on Ikea Island. He turns it down. The girl barely has time to put her contacts in just in case. Things aren't going too well for Dalton. He's living out of his car. When a policeman tells him to leave a gas station, the man drives to a railroad crossing in a fit of sadness and hits the tracks. But he recovers quickly. In the end, he barely manages to pull away from the locomotive, colliding with a wheelbarrow. Then his gaze falls on the note. And so the bus crosses the bridge, passing stunning vistas of the coral archipelago of the Florida Keys. At the final stop, Dalton meets a teenage girl named Charlie, who turns out to be the daughter of a bookstore owner. They explain to a guest how to find a roadside diner at Frankie's, called the Roadside Diner. There, the waiter, Billy, recognizes Dalton. Looking around, the guest doesn't notice how the evening comes, and with it the typical bar instincts of the customers, to get drunk and fight to the accompaniment of live music, with a carefully fenced net. Dalton looks on as Billy breaks up Zabiaka with the help of a friend of the riff. The evening ceases to be languid when a gang of soy bikers, led by Dalton, starts to approach the joint. They start hooliganizing, threatening Billy and breaking inventory. Dalton, seeing that this is the source of the problem, advises them to go outside. Outside, after asking where the nearest hospital is, Dalton beats up all 5 of them. When that doesn't help calm his rage, he begins to beat even harder, breaking bones and knocking out teeth. Dalton borrows Frankie's car and carefully drives the beaten bullies to the hospital room. In the emergency room, he tells the medics what he did and to whom he did it, allowing them to dwell less on the diagnoses. His concern, however, is not appreciated. Dr. Ellie sarcastically thanks a guest for the list of patients who will have to work extra hours. She offers to help by noticing a bleeding cut from a recent stabbing. The Hippocratic Oath is binding. Back at the tavern, Dalton receives payment from Frank. She lets him stay in a moored boat, advising him to beware of the alligator. When the man arrives at the pier in the early morning, the caretaker warns him of it. At night, Dalton has dreams that help him make sense of his past. It turns out he was a UFC fighter who claimed the middleweight title. During the day, he gets a coworker, bartender, who brings him a home-cooked meal. There's no time to hunt for wild ones. While he eats, the woman tells him that the diner has already changed many guards. But each one left, unable to withstand the pressure of the bikers. Bouncer goes to the bookstore, surprised that every islander greets him by name. He asks Charlie for permission to poke around on the internet. Curious about the value of the bar, since the bandits want to take it away. Meanwhile, a neighboring store is being harassed by bikers. A girl shows up with a bat to chase them away. However, she only succeeds when the bouncer is at her back. A subtle hint at the continuation of the Regal kicking banquet. A couple of bikers visit boss Ben Branciat, a lover of all things island, including food, experiences, and objects while rocking. He gets a report on the new bouncer, who is feared by criminals for his ass-kicking abilities, including for his unique cowboy approach. At the tavern, Dalton questions the hostess about why everyone recognizes his name. It's because gossip spreads like cockroaches. In the evening, the tipsy customers continue their typical entertainment. The bouncer instructs Billy on how to punch a knife-wielding bully in the face. But when he lashes out again, Dalton personally breaks his arm to discourage him from threatening with a weapon. The experienced fighter continues to mentor the waiter, teaching him the finer points of quality martial arts. Later, Dalton hires Reef, who is engaged in boxing. He himself trains in his spare time to keep in shape. The workaday routine is full of live music, alcohol, inadequate visitors, and mild unobtrusive violence. But soon soy hackers in full force are discharged from the hospital and threateningly growling motors in the parking lot, not risking to come within educational chapalacha distance. Dalton continues to be plagued by nightmares about the UFC. Then, at a battle of glances, he gave the champ a splash, which isn't very polite. He later paid for it in the Octagon. Dalton wakes up and has breakfast at the cafe, where he meets Dr. Ellie. She tells him that the people here live on a tribal basis. They don't like foreigners and the police ignore many problems. Dalton works hard and receives a weekly fluffy envelope. Returning home at night, he notices a pickup truck approaching fast. He manages to jump back, but the driver backs up in an attempt to bring the collision to an end. Dalton jumps into the back of the truck. He breaks through the barrier and falls into the ocean. As he flies, he hears the biker Dell driving the vehicle. Later, Dalton finds Dell on the boat with a shotgun. The man wants to give him a math lesson on how to use fractions to multiply one unit of an annoying person by 0. With a cry of "I'm a humanitarian," the host throws the guest overboard, tossing the shotgun after him. Just then an alligator reptile appears, decides the bandit is his nighttime snack, and drags him away. While the police search for the biker's remains, Bouncer pays Charlie a visit. While leaving the store, Dalton bumps into the bandit, who asks to get in the car. The boss wants to talk. When the thug pulls out a gun, Dalton breaks his fingers and takes away the tzatziki. After unloading the gun and letting his partner know where the boss can find him, Bouncer goes to work. The bullies won't leave themselves behind. Gramillo, the hapless protagonist, informs Ben of his predicament. Unexpectedly, the boss receives a call from his father, who is serving time in prison. To avoid an unpleasant conversation, the boss throws the phone into the sea. At that moment, Knox appears at the center of the narrative. Brand Sr. calls him from prison and asks him to deal with his son's troubles. Knox is sent to Florida after stealing a fancy showy jacket from a clothing store and setting a car on fire. Elia takes Dalton for a boat ride, having borrowed it from a police officer she knows. Swimming out to the open sea, she breaks the boat and, grabbing chairs and an umbrella, goes down into the water. It turns out that in the middle of the sea there is an underwater spit, on which you can walk like a goat fisherman on a fishing trip. The girl asks the guy about the past, but he refuses to talk. While they are chilling, Knox arrives at Ben's house. In addition to an educational flattering from his father, he has brought dynamite to deal with a roadside diner and finish off an annoying bouncer. After dropping Dalton off, Ollie notices that the cops are asking him to answer a few questions regarding the alligator's nighttime feeding. However, they take him not to the station, but to another pier where the sheriff is waiting for him. The policeman suggests that Dalton leave the island for good. When he refuses, they take him outside at gunpoint and assault him until Ollie appears and slaps the sheriff. After dragging Dalton away, she confesses that the sheriff is her father. He worked for Brent the Elder, who actually built the modern infrastructure in the Peephole. Ben continues his father's work to erect a luxury hotel. He needs to buy out Frankie's lot, which Tanny sells because of the bar. But since things have gotten so serious, Ollie advises Dalton to bail before someone gets hurt. The brooding bouncer is unaware that Ben's subordinates are at this very moment setting Charlie's bookstore on fire as a message to him. In the evening, the former UFC fighter is late for work. Ben, the loquacious boss of the local thugs, sits down with him. He shows Dalton a tape of his last performance, commenting on what's going on. Ben wonders why he was beating up an already defeated opponent, who was also his friend. Leaving, Ben tells Knox to trash the diner. Taking a gang of bikers, the thug goes into the diner. There, he heats things up by swinging a golf club and bullying visitors. Billy tries to calm him down, but gets kicked in the ribs. Reef, backing away, takes a shot. Even as the disgruntled visitors hold Knox down, he is still strong enough to fight back. Soon the hooliganism escalates into a full-blown brawl. Dalton watches indifferently, but when Knox, having reached the proper degree of pandemonium, challenges him to a duel, he is forced to react. They meet in the center of the gym, where Knox goes into trash talk mode and promises to beat up Dalton as if one is a movie star wannabe UFC fighter and the other is a UFC champion impersonating a movie star. The men work things out by hurling each other all over the bar and smashing liquor bottles. The underlings join in, but not for long. They have their own squabbles behind the scenes. In the end, Knox takes Dalton outside with a fling, informing him that he'll only win when the cancer on the Humpback Mountain whistles. Realizing he has lost, the defeated male leaves. The bandits disperse, leaving the wounded medic and the cop behind. Ben gets a report that Knox didn't kill the bouncer, and the cops from another precinct, who weren't bribed, prevented him from tearing up the bar. Dalton packs his things to leave. Frankie, begging him to stay, accuses him of cowardice, to which he admits he was very scared. He goes to the bus station and sees a burned-out business. According to the fire department, both the girl and her father are hospitalized. Such a clear message. Dalton visits Brant's house and discovers the handyman responsible for the arson. The bouncer reveals that he was going to leave, but Charlie's fate made him change his mind. He cuts the thug's throat with a swift blow and pushes him into the water. As he drowns, Dalton says he was really scared. Scared of what he'll do if he doesn't surrender. He loads the corpse into the car, noticing another biker. He says he's getting off the island, and in return for his life, he tells Dalton everything he knows about his boss's business. Grabbing Knox's bag of dynamite, Bouncer goes to the yacht. There he has a recurring nightmare. He loses the title fight, but at the last moment he is blown away. Throwing himself into the attack, Dalton not only knocks out his opponent, but beats him to death before the referee drags him away. Early in the morning, grabbing a corpse from the freezer, Dalton heads to the scene of a meeting between corrupt cops and drug dealers. After stunning a sheriff's deputy, he steals a suitcase full of money and shoots the corpse with a pistol to cover his tracks. Then, in an attempt to induce short-term amnesia as a result of a concussion, Bouncer knocks out a waking policeman with a blow to the head with a stick. He uses an anonymous call to report a dead body on shore and a suspicious officer, then returns to the boat to make a bomb. There, the sheriff visits him to report and the officer tells him all about it, but there's another problem. Ben has kidnapped Ellie. The sheriff asks for help and Dalton agrees to return the money. He takes the boat of a policeman Ellie knows and sails to Ben's yacht. On board, learning that he didn't bring the money, the guard punches him in the face, but Dalton doesn't even move. The sheriff is already there. Vishibalo wonders where Ellie is, but the bandits insist that money in the morning, chairs in the evening. The situation is escalating, the guns are exposed, and Knox is closing in. He learns of the explosives theft. Dalton takes advantage of the hiccup to activate the bomb he brought. Emergency, panic allows him to go in search of Ellie, the one in the cabin below. When one of the henchmen fires, it shatters a window, allowing the fugitives to swim outside. Ellie climbs into the other boat, and Dalton uses Mockingbird's body as a shield from Knox. Ben gets in the boat next to Ellie. Knox tries to swamp Dalton, but Dalton dodges, gets in the boat, and puts his rival on a carp to feed himself. Ben notices the chase and accepts Dalton's offer, but Ellie intervenes. As a result, the two sides part like ships at sea, the inflatable boat sinks, and Bouncer ends up on the boss's boat. There he attacks Ben, but the boat collides with the shore, hitting the notorious bar. Ellie and Dalton manage to jump, and Ben is thrown onto the roof. Knox, having reached the bridge abutment, slows down the hitchhiker. On the shore, Bouncer searches for the criminal, who fires off a crossbow but misses. Dalton wants to beat up Ben, illustrating the principle of karma, but then Knox drives his pickup truck into a wall. This is an Avengers-level threat, Dalton thinks, switching to him. After kicking each other through the door, the fighters come together in the second round of the mixed martial arts bout. Realizing that no easy victory is in sight, Bouncer even takes off his shirt. In the course of the brawl, the athletes tear the net and fall on the drums, where Knox competently taps, but not the rhythm, but on Dalton's face. Realizing with a broken mouth that he is losing the bout, Dalton resorts to trickery. He takes his opponent down by choke. His only weakness. He dodges and delivers a stabbing blow to his opponent's side. Ben intervenes and demands that he kill this stupid and aggravating fool. Knox does so by snapping his boss's neck. Recovering, Dalton intercepts Knox's hand with another splinter and sticks it in himself. Knox, who believes he is a vampire, dies from an overdose of wood in his system. At this time, Ellie and the sheriff arrive. After burying the gun, the cop tells Bouncer to leave before witnesses show up. Dalton waits for the bus, leaving a bag of stolen money with the bookstore owner, while Frankie and the staff try to repair the bar. Charlie manages to ask the man if he wants to stay on their island, but he drives off into the sunset anyway. This is where the movie ends.